Covering Santa Clara, San Francisco, East Bay, and all the Bay Area. This is ABC 7 News.
The ABC 7 News I-Team has shocking new details about the sex and drug scandal involving one of the state's top political couples.
People are captivated by juicy headlines featuring public figures and their involvement with sex and drugs. It's like a magnet for our curiosity. However, we rarely stop to think about the real struggles the people are facing behind those titillating headlines. There's an entire untold story, and we barely take a moment to consider what's really going on in the lives of the subjects.
It brought me to suicidality, yet it was the press's coverage of it that made it extremely difficult to rebuild my life because I placed importance on what was said.
A lot has been said about Nadia Davis. The high-profile lawyer and public figure made national headlines when she found herself entangled in a scandal, becoming the target of blackmail due to a sex tape that involved her while she was married to the California state treasurer.
Understanding the power of shaming and the importance of compassion when we do talk about other people's struggles, the importance of looking behind somebody's behavior and posing the question, oh, I wonder what's really going on, and using it as a platform to talk about mental health awareness, to talk about trauma, to talk about the epidemic of addiction.
In this emotionally powerful episode of Grieving Out Loud, Nadia opens up about her personal journey, delving into deeply painful and challenging experiences that have shaped her life. From enduring public shaming to facing substance use disorder, racial bullying, and childhood sexual molestation, plus losing the people she holds dearest. Nadia's resilience and strength shine through as she shares her remarkable story of triumph over adversity.
A huge first step is to realize that we are not our thought. So start conversing with them, asking if it's a message from your soul or it's your mind in survival mode. And slowly, you can build a home within you.
Tune in to hear how Nadia has found the courage to confront her past and emerge even stronger, proving that resilience and hope can lead us through even the darkest of times. Nadia Davis, welcome to Grieving Out Loud. I'm so grateful that you're joining me, and I can't wait to dive into your story. It's such an interesting one, and also I think you have so much that so many people can learn from. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for this platform. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start off talking about a little bit about your background. You were raised in California, and you have a very diverse background.
Yes, indeed. I'm a representative of Southern California. My father is Hispanic and Native American, and my mom is an immigrant from Germany. She's still a German citizen. And they met when she was visiting her sister, who had married a GI, and the rest is history. They had 7 kids in 9 years. I'm the youngest of them, right? And they sponsored Vietnamese refugees. So my holidays were apple strudel, egg rolls, and tamales.
Not many people can say that.
Yeah, it was a beautiful way to grow up. And I didn't know that it was different until it was pointed out to me. And where I went to elementary school at the tail end of my father's successful journey, where we were in, Orange in the Villa Park area. It was nice, from, an apartment in Santa Ana, Fountain Valley area. So it's a little shocking to know that, as a 6-year-old, I was racially bullied. And it didn't occur to me until later on as a mom, and little things started happening kind of with my kids, not racially, but it's so common to have subtle bullying in school. And so when I look back and when I wrote the book, I realized that that experience combined with sexual molestation by a doctor really imprinted in me a way of understanding life.
I want to ask you about being sexually molested by someone in a position of trust. As an investigative journalist, I did stories about a doctor on a reservation who was molesting boys, and that had been allowed to continue for years. And it just horrifies me. I think about that person is put in such a position of trust.
hmm I explain it in detail, not the facts, because I don't remember a lot of detail. It's almost as though I'm telling a story for my child. I'm telling it for the child in me. And I had to do some intensive trauma therapy later in life and understand why the memory of these four walls always entered my mind as a child. I didn't understand it, nor do I have recollection of how many times it happened. Writing about it, as well as the intensive trauma therapy, helped me to put into words the picture that kept entering my mind and create a different ending. It is the key event that happened that really honestly shaped how I understood life.
Despite childhood trauma, Nadia was absolutely determined to make a difference in the world. She decided to become a lawyer and focus on advocating for youth justice. And in 1998, she was elected to the Santa Ana Unified School District Board of Trustees, making her the youngest Latina and Native American to hold such a position at the local level.
It was me versus the world. And the way that I saw the world was go save it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And my parents were they each overcame so much. I didn't know all those details, but I saw what they were doing in front of me. And my father, an orphan shield worker who overcame multiple challenges, worked throughout grade school and became one of the first Spanish speaking attorneys and Latino attorneys in the state as well as the nation, one of the first to graduate from UCLA Law School. He had a Latin jazz band and was pivotal in a lot of the local activist events, but he was a unifier. He had a really warm presence about him. And whenever he was questioned, he would just say, I am who I am. And it created this aura in him. And my mom, I mean, she was like Catholic Woman of the Year, and they sponsored, like I said, a lot of Vietnamese refugees. And so I saw that as light, as love, as hope, as what I was yearning for to feel inside me. And from an early age on, I did all kinds of things, food can drives, Amnesty International petitions in high school, running for student government. And I believe it was instilled in me from my parents. My siblings are all kind, good people, but they didn't have like that activist thing in them or that desire to save others. And so I'm not quite sure where that came from, other than the two sources of trauma, ironically.
Tragically, Nadia's struggles were far from over. Just as she began her second year of law school, she was faced with a sudden and heartbreaking loss of her hero, her father, who unexpectedly died from a heart attack.
And he represented everything good in the world and the childhood trauma and some other things that were happening in the family during high school. And so when he passed, it was deeply, deeply tragic and difficult because there was no warning. And the survival mode came in with helping my mom, who wasn't eating or functioning at all. And so I moved home and helped her and became the face of the Wally Davis's daughter. And there were multiple scholarships and memorials and a school named after him. And again, it was in this outside mode of this is my worth. This is why there's purpose in life and the world.
His death also strengthened Nadia's desire to make a difference. One of Davis's most remarkable contributions was helping a 16-year-old named Arthur Carmona, who had been wrongfully convicted. Carmona spent more than 2 years in prison based on eyewitness testimony for 2 armed robberies. After nearly 3 years of legal filings and lobbying, he was eventually set free.
Ronnie Carmona made a plea at a community event for her son. I was a brand new attorney, and when you hear wrongfully convicted or innocent, I didn't question it, but I didn't necessarily believe it. And I called my father's former law partner and kind of like an uncle to me and asked him about it. And he said, yeah, we've all heard about this. This kid was railroaded. And so he guided me initially, and we did the initial filing. We lost, kind of expected to, because it's limited. A motion for a new trial is limited on what was brought into court. The problem was what was not brought into court. And then following that, I was able to get an investigator and a top law firm to come in and represent him on a habeas. And I was kind of the gopher behind the scenes and doing the fundraising and all the lobbying efforts and getting documentation for them and everything. And he was freed.
That's quite an accomplishment. But as she pursued that accomplishment, Nadia was confronted with yet another traumatic experience, a near-death car crash.
And was not breathing when they found me. I had 22 broken bones, a punctured lung, my brain bled. And I had an experience that is the source of now, after years of recovery, of this middle ground I call a home within me, where I can connect to the infinite as best I can in a physical body, and then observe my mind from a space of neutrality. And after the car accident, on life support, and the process of waking up from near death and being IV'd to morphine and all the body pain and everything, it was on high drive, the survivalist mind. And it was, you are just a body. Your thoughts are your real true self. And everything that I saw around me when I woke up defined my worth. And it was beautiful. I think if I hadn't had, there was posters around me. I was president of Santa Ana School Board and leading a lot of local causes, including the case. And, there was Nadia Davis, we need you and get better. And a beanie baby named Hope that Arthur had sent me from jail. And so my thought was, I got to get better. I have to walk again because this kid is still behind bars. I'm at least still free, whether I could walk again or not at that point.
It sounds incredibly painful, what you went through physically.
Absolutely. And it is constant management today.
Were you prescribed opioids at that time then?
I was prescribed opioids. I felt after I returned home that they made me really groggy. And interestingly, I never got addicted to opioids. I never did. I stopped them, I would say, a month or so after I returned home in a wheelchair.
While Nadia did not grapple with opioid addiction, she did face her own battle with substance use disorder, beginning in her late 20s.
I had energy drinks and I started managing alcoholically for the pain and flashbacks from childhood and the grieving that I really never did. This is such an important part of the book because I explain how ingrained in this survivalist mind and mode it was, have your energy drink, put your heels and your suit on, go give the inspirational speech, and have a drink to calm the nerves, ironically, and everything will be okay. I do know now that alcoholic drinking began during that time in my life, in my late 20s. To manage what I did not know was my mind separating me from my truth, not allowing the grieving, not allowing the trauma processing. It really was go fight, go fight the bad in the world. I remember clearly a time when my best friend, Priscilla, and I would sit on my kitchen floor and drink a bottle of wine. I just remember always sharing a bottle of wine with her, and that's how I was able to cry. And she abruptly passed.
Your friend Priscilla.
She found out that she had uterine cancer, and I was by her side in the hospital when she took her last breath. And so it was another kind of marking of my survivalist mind's ways of react to the fears, react to your self-judgments, and be the presentation of perfection. Your purpose, is really in saving others.
And social media does a lot to perpetrate the presentation of perfection, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of people in the world walking around not dealing with their emotions or their trauma and substances are an easy thing to turn to. And then presenting life as being great and showing themselves as successful to the outside world, which you certainly were.
The interesting thing is, as you were saying that, I realized I didn't have shame necessarily. I mean, I had shame. It's such an undefinable feeling. There was a reason that I didn't reach out for help. And that certainly probably was, I didn't have the words and know how to express it. So it was finding purpose in helping others versus seeing the purpose in helping myself. And so I want to point out, that's a really subtle way that our own shame works.
But I think we're all taught that we should find our purpose in life, and that very well may be helping others. I mean, in some ways, I feel like my purpose is helping others with the charity that we do, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And your story, your loss was so profound. And to say I'm sorry and add it to the whole lot I do that right now. I am so sorry for your loss.
If you're not familiar with my story, in 2018, I lost my 21-year-old daughter, Emily, to fentanyl poisoning. Since that devastating moment, I've dedicated myself to raising awareness about this critical issue because fentanyl poisoning has become the leading cause of death among America's young adults. I invite you to find out more about Emily's hope and how you can get involved by visiting the show notes of this podcast. While you're there, please consider giving the podcast a positive review and sharing it with friends and family. Together, we can make a difference and prevent more losses like mine.
And life for you, so you're using the substances, and I want to move on to another chapter of your life where you found yourself the victim of blackmail. What happened?
My ex-husband of 12 years, at the height of my professional career, in a suit and heels at an event, pleading for the kids in Santa Ana, and walked away. He tracked me down and we went on our first date, and the rest is history. I became pregnant.
Nadia then married that man, Bill Lockyer, who at the time was the Attorney General of California. The wedding and pregnancy made headlines across the state, but behind the scenes, Nadia was struggling with substances.
During that time, I experimented with a drug. I stopped when I found out that I was pregnant. We had our oldest son, Diego, and life went on. The chronic pain, the flashbacks and grieving, the loss, the non-grieving, everything kept coming back and I couldn't ignore it anymore. And my drinking that had been manageable started to increase. And my ex-husband really didn't have an ability to be there emotionally. We had no friendship at the time. And I focused on our son, landed a wonderful job helping others, leading the Alameda County Family Justice Center, was encouraged to run for higher office for county supervisor. And in the midst of all of that, I sought help for my drinking and met a man while my husband and I were separated. I did get in an intimate relationship with him for a short time. And that man took intimate photos and began a series of multiple types of psychological terror on me and my family. Somehow the media got a hold of photos he took. A local reporter posted them, and not believing I had anywhere to go for help, believed that that man was the only one that could stop it based on the messages that he was sending to me. I didn't know who was doing any of it. We were blackmailed. I was threatened, you're going to go viral if you don't reply, and things of that sort from an unrecognizable number, and on and on. I did not understand what was happening. At that time, one reporter in particular made it into a drug and sex scandal. And my husband and I became separated. He wanted it really all to just go away and was not able to hold space where I could feel heard and loved and accepted, where we could heal. And that absolutely was the time in my life that was the most traumatic and the most difficult to recover from.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the aftermath of all that, being caught up in he's in the public eye. You had a high profile job and position, and then being blackmailed. I mean, it just had to be devastating to feel like, where could you run and hide? You couldn't, right? And now you're talking
No,
about it. So, what, in hindsight or looking back, because it's been a little while, what do you think of it now?
that our true self is infinite, whole, and complete. And it is unchanged by anything that anybody has said or done to us, including ourselves. And that is not real life, that this is real life. Yet understanding the power of shaming and the importance of compassion when we do talk about other people's struggles, the importance of looking behind somebody's behavior and posing the question, "Oh, I wonder what's really going on," and using it as a platform to talk about mental health awareness, to talk about trauma, to talk about the epidemic of addiction. That's what I want people to know.
Do you have compassion for the man that did that to you, the person who blackmailed you?
Yes, today, today I do. And I found somewhat that space, not only through 12-step recovery, but mainly through Kundalini yoga. And in Kundalini yoga, in the chronic pain and trauma recovery, I was not able to do any of those until I was able to feel safe and calm within my body. And through the process of breath work and use of sound, I finally was able to reach a state in meditation that was close enough to the space I entered in the near death car accident, where past, present, and future are all combined and everything really makes sense. And in that is where I found the space to realize that man's undone work and whatever is going on in his psyche, whatever it is, the cruelty and the darkness that he has brought to many people's lives, that I was strong enough to carry it. It brought me to suicidality, yet it was the press's coverage of it that made it extremely difficult to rebuild my life because I placed importance on what was said. And so I was able to get to that place of forgiveness as well as connecting to my truth through Kundalini yoga.
That's fascinating. I try to meditate myself. I've done yoga for a lot of years. I'm not very good at it, but I haven't done Kundalini yoga specifically. not a great meditator, although I try. What advice do you have for people who have been through a lot of trauma? They've been through loss just like you. I mean, I think your story of the blackmailing and the betrayal is most people haven't been through that. And being in the public eye and having that happen to them, that had to be awful. But a lot of other things that you're talking about, sexual abuse, loss, grief, addiction. What do you recommend that people do to try to find some kind of healing within themselves?
Start with your breath. Start simple with your breath and create a space that's just yours in your home. Secondly, don't beat yourself up for not being able to shut your mind up. It's impossible. Start having conversations with your thoughts. Huge first step is to realize that we are not our thoughts. So start conversing with them, asking if it's a message from your soul or it's your mind in survival mode. And slowly, slowly, you can build a home within you.
Explain Kundalini yoga for our listeners who may not know.
Kundalini sounds like a roller coaster. And Kundalini yoga is a whole technology that includes sound, breath, and movement and mantra to fully integrate the whole body into a state of calm, enlightenment, and more. And frankly, I needed like a bridge between my body and thoughts and meditation. And what Kundalini yoga has is it always uses mantra and or sound. And so for me, that was the middle point where I was able to begin to quiet my mind. So Kundalini yoga also, I need to point out, has a multitude of specifically designed kriyas, either for a part of the body, whether it be the kidneys, the adrenal glands, a part of our mind, whether positive, neutral, negative, and also the spiritual path.
And has it helped keep you in recovery as well? I've heard a lot of good things about yoga for recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I offer it on the beach on Sundays.
Well, I
at
wish I was
6.
closer to you. I'd come to the beach.
I will be offering it online also, as I did in the past. Yeah. So
That's great.
absolutely it helps with recovery. Again, it's shame and our attacking thoughts that separate us from each other and from really diving in and being brutally honest with ourselves and others. And so I found that the breath work and finding a space between my soul and my mind was really where the real recovery work began.
That's a beautiful thought. I just want to thank you for sharing your story. I know parts of it are really difficult and hard to get through. I'm sure it's still difficult to talk about some of those things. And I appreciate you sharing your insight that you've gained through your practice of Kundalini yoga, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Nadia has written a book about her experiences and how she was able to find peace and recovery despite all those difficult times. Her book is titled Home is Within You, a memoir of recovery and redemption. You can find more information about it by checking out the show notes on this podcast. I hope you found this episode both informative and enlightening. Please check out our other episodes of Grieving Out Loud, as well as our website, emilyshope.charity, to see how you can get involved in our mission. Our aim is to create a supportive community where you can find solace and strength in sharing painful experiences, knowing you are not alone. Together, we can help others facing trying times. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wannenberg King and Anna Fye.